What is happening, everyone? The football therapist here. Time to break down some of our early wide receiver rankings for 2021. Let's hit that intro. So guys, before we begin, remember, tiers are very important to me. The difference between the tiers are a bit larger than the difference within the tiers. There's always a gap to me between the tiers. Let me start with Davante Adams. He's my #1 ranked wide receiver going into 2021, and why wouldn't he? I mean, the guy who had a monster season. He averaged almost 4 more points per game for fantasy football last season than the second best wide receiver. The guy has had 23 total touchdowns since week 12 of last season, and the guy just continues to produce with Aaron Rodgers. He gets targets, he gets yards, he gets touchdowns. His situation is not changing going into 2021, so barring any major injury, he's going to be top 3 loaded almost every single week next season. Second guy, Tyreek Hill. Again, I kind of went back and forth with where I would put him in tier 1 or tier 2, but his situation to me just really boosts him up over some of these other players. He's in the Kansas City offense. Patrick Mahomes is going to continue to throw his way. He's a big boom playmaker. He had one game last season where he had 56 fantasy points, I believe, against the Tampa Bay Bucks. He can win you your fantasy week any given week. So to me, he's going to be locked and loaded as a top 3 wide receiver again going into the 2021 season. So guys, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and comment down below what you think about these rankings. Let's get into some of these tier 2 guys. The first guy is Calvin Ridley for me. I love Ridley going to 2021. Actually made a full breakdown video on him. He led the league last season in air yards with over 2,000. He was a big play threat. He had 40 deep ball targets, which was first in the NFL. And as long as Matt Ryan is the quarterback there, which I think he will be, he's going to be continuing to see those big play opportunities every single week. He also has a very high touchdown percentage, which to me just helps him in this fantasy football world. He only had 2 games outside of the top 30 last season. He's uber consistent, so for me, he's going to be my #3 ranked wide receiver going into next year. #4, Stefon Diggs. Not much to hate about his performance last season. Led the league in targets, led the league in receptions, led the league in yards. He was just an absolute monster with Josh Allen taking that next step. His situation is not going to change going into 2021. The only concern for him is, does Josh Allen regress or does he continue to grow? Regardless, I think he's a locked and loaded top 5 wide receiver going into next year. The last guy is DeAndre Hopkins in this tier. He was actually right behind Stefon Diggs in both receptions and targets. The guy was a machine for most of the year. They were a little bit concerned with the offense down the stretch. I talked about that in my quarterback video with Kyler Murray when I was doing my quarterback rankings. They seemed to stall down the stretch, but I'm expecting a full season of really terrific play for this offense. One of the bigger things to notice with DeAndre Hopkins is he only had 6 total touchdowns, which was 24th in the league. I expect that to go up a little bit. Even if he gets 2 to 3 more touchdowns, that's going to boost his fantasy numbers that much more. And I'm expecting him to be a top 5 locked and loaded receiver for next season. So when looking at some of these tier 3 guys, these are guys that are a little bit of those safer low-end wide receiver ones. Some of them have a little bit more risk, some of them have a little less upside, but all of these guys feel relatively safe in this 6 to 11 range. Keenan Allen, the first one, he was just a volume king last season. Most of his games he averaged double-digit targets. He had 2 games where he had 19 targets. The issue with Keenan Allen though was he wasn't uber effective. He only averaged about 7.4 yards per target. he didn't really get many yards on his catches. He didn't get to 1,000 yards. And when you see a guy who doesn't get to 1,000 yards on 100 receptions, that kind of concerns you with the efficiency. Regardless, though, he seems relatively safe based on that volume that he'll be seeing next year again. Justin Jefferson, this was a guy that exploded on the scene last season. He set rookie records. He was third in receiving yards at 1,400. He's just a big play threat anytime he touches the ball. The big concern with him for me is that they're changing their offensive coordinator. That could impact this offense. But regardless, this kid has the talent to be in this top 6 to 11 range, and I like him a little bit better than some of these guys based on his rookie year and how he'll grow going into year 2. DK Metcalf, I'm a little bit lower on him than most. I talked about this with Russell Wilson a little bit when I broke down Russell Wilson. That offense just seems to always fade in the second half of the year. The last 2 seasons, Russell Wilson's numbers went down. This past season, we saw Metcalf kind of trend in the same direction. He was putting up multiple top 10 performances in the first half of the year. Second half of the year, we didn't really see that. He was very volatile. He does have the talent and the big play upside to keep him in this top 10 range, but to me, he's a little less secure than some of these guys based on what we've seen with the Seattle offense over the past couple of years. AJ Brown, I was so high on him last year, drafted him in almost all of my leagues, if not most of them. I predicted he had a top 10 finish. He didn't quite get there. He had some injuries that he was dealing with, but he was 7th in fantasy points per games. I think that, again, he's super efficient. He has those high touchdown numbers. He was 5th in touchdowns with 11. He doesn't get as much volume as these guys, which is a little bit of a concern on a regular basis. The team kind of is a run-heavy team. But going into next season with Corey Davis potentially leaving in free agency, he's going to get more volume, in my opinion, on a per-game basis. He seems relatively safe for this top 10 finish again next season. Allen Robinson, he's done the most with the least out of these wide receivers. He always seems to perform at a very high level with crap quarterbacks. He's a high volume guy. He gets a ton of receptions. I wish his touchdown numbers would go up, but again, the quarterback play is a big concern for him going into next season. Where is he going to land? Can he get a quarterback that could produce a little bit more on the efficiency side of things, give him more quality targets? Because if that happens, he has top 5 potential. Right now, this seems like a safe space spot for him at number 10, but we'll see what happens this offseason and change it based on where he lands. I don't think I'm going to put him a lot lower, though, because he's produced with crap quarterbacks. And lastly, Michael Thomas in this tier. Not much to say about last season. It was an injury-filled year. Going into 2021, there's quarterback concerns there. Who's going to be the quarterback of the future? Can he sustain the production that we've seen over the last few years without Drew Brees? It's going to be interesting in New Orleans what happens there. But regardless, I think he's still a really quality receiver. I think he has the talent. I think we could see him have a little bit of a bounce back year. I don't think I could see him being top 5, but definitely he could fall in that top 6 to 10 range. Right now at 11, I have him, seems relatively safe going into next year. So guys, my number 12 ranked receiver is CeeDee Lamb. Just know that this tier does extend, and I will include them in the comments below, as well as on my article on my website. Why I love CeeDee, well, I broke this down as well. For the first 5 weeks of the season, he was wide receiver 11 in PPR leagues. Him and Cooper were balling out with Dak Prescott on the field. I don't see why that can't happen again next season if Dak Prescott returns. The guy is an incredible talent. Coming out of last season, he was the consensus number 1 rookie wide receiver. He's going to break out at some point. Maybe it's a little bit high, putting him at number 12. Maybe it's a little bit early with the breakout, but I am full on board with CeeDee Lamb going into 2021. He's going to be my number 1 owned wide receiver. I could tell you right now, I'm just super high on the ceiling of this guy. and he's going to end up being a star in this league. Again, if you like this video, don't be afraid to comment below what you think about my rankings, and I'll see you guys soon.